Well, right now, both sides are playing the blame game on Capitol Hill as the super committee struggles to come up with a plan to cut the deficit.
If you don't do any revenues, you won't get the grand bargain that gets the deficit down. Just as if you didn't do spending, you couldn't come to a grand bargain that gets the deficit down.
The sequestration is not engraved on golden tablets. It is a notional aspiration. And those of us, and I think we'd have sufficient support to prevent those kinds of cuts being enacted because of the impact it would have on national security.
Sequestration, of course, being what happens if there's not an agreement reached here for the super committee. Chris Niedermayer is a former U.S. Senate Chief of Staff and served as Deputy Director at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Certainly have seen some interesting things in the past in both of those positions. Chris, what's the game plan here? I mean, high stakes, but either side, what's in it for the posturing on both sides at this moment?
Well, there's only 2 weeks left, as you know, for the super committee to reach a conclusion if they're going to meet the deadline. It seems that President Obama set a new tone when he went out on the campaign trail recently on his jobs program, trying to paint Congress as a do-nothing Congress. So there is some fear that, given the fact that the full committee hasn't met recently and that Chuck Schumer is saying that they may not reach a conclusion, that both sides will try to point fingers at each other and then wait until the next year's election to resolve the matter.
Does it help Obama if there is no agreement and we go into this stage of sequestration as Senator McCain was talking about?
I don't think it helps either side. He's the commander-in-chief, and he needs to get this economy moving again. If the committee doesn't reach a conclusion, then the options are the credit rating of the country could go down, the markets could take a dive. Already there's an international economic crisis. People are out of work to the tune of 9%. So if those circumstances don't change between now and next November, I think both members of Congress and the president will be in the tank.
As far as what the timeline looks like, you mentioned 2 weeks, but do you think is this going to be like the debt ceiling debate? Are we going down to the very wire to see if they can actually come up with $1.2 trillion in cuts, never mind the 10 plus more that they're going to need to make eventually?
You're right. It probably will go down to the wire, but there are a few options. One is that they could vote themselves an extension, and there is some view on the Hill that they might do that. The committee itself would have to have 7 of the 12 members do that. So if the Democrats do that, they need one Republican and vice versa. The good news about that is that if they do extend the deadline, which I think they're likely to do, the vote itself in Congress would not be subject to debate or filibuster or amendment. So it would be an up or down vote. The other option that some of the administration have been talking about is perhaps the committee will come up with some package that they can agree on, such as $400 billion in cuts, because they seem to be so far apart on the tax revenue part of the package.
I didn't hear too much about moving and making that extension. So if that's on the table, then we're in it for a while. Chris, thank you very much for your perspective. We appreciate it, and nice to have you on set with us.
Thank you.